We all kind of take it for granted, but what if the speed of light, that universal speed limit, was actually really slow? Like,
Hmm.
buckle up, because today we're deep diving into an analysis of what if the speed of light was really slow.
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you, the implications are mind-blowing. Get ready to see the world around you in a whole new light, literally.
Yeah, it's interesting. From the speed of light, it's not just a random number. It's
Yeah.
like woven into the fabric of reality. It affects time-space, even the very structure of matter,
Yeah.
like messing with it changes everything.
So, okay, before we get to the what ifs, let's do a quick light speed 101.
Right.
We're talking 186,000 miles per second.
Yeah.
That's 7.5 trips around the Earth in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
It's kind of impossible to grasp, right?
Yeah, and early scientists actually thought light was instantaneous.
Oh, wow.
But then back in the 1600s, this astronomer Ole Wimmer,
Okay.
he was studying Jupiter's moon Io,
Okay.
and he noticed that the timing of Io's eclipses
Uh-huh.
seemed to vary depending on where Earth was in its orbit.
Interesting.
Basically, when Earth was closer to Jupiter, the eclipses appeared to happen sooner.
Well, so he was like, wait a minute, light must actually take time to travel.
Exactly.
That's some serious scientific detective work for the 17th century.
Yeah, Reamer basically figured out that light from Io was taking longer to reach us when Earth was farther away.
Wow.
And that's how we came up with one of the first estimates of the speed of light.
Huh.
It was a huge moment in our understanding of, well, everything.
Right. And then, boom, Einstein comes along and rocks the world with his theory of special relativity.
Exactly. Einstein established that the speed of light is a constant no matter how fast you're moving.
Right.
But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
He also introduced the concepts of time dilation and length contraction, which basically mean that time and space themselves
Right.
aren't absolute, but change depending on your speed relative to the speed of light.
So, like, time travel isn't totally out of the question.
Well, not exactly time travel, but more like time running at different speeds.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine a pair of twins,
Okay.
and one takes off on a spaceship traveling at the speed of light.
Right.
For the twin on the spaceship,
Yeah.
time would actually slow down relative to the twin back on Earth.
Yeah.
And when they return, the spacefaring twin would be younger.
Wow.
That's time dilation in a nutshell.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder, what would our everyday lives be like
Yeah.
if we could actually experience these relativistic effects?
Right.
What if instead of light zipping around at 186,000 miles per second, it was more like walking speed?
Now we're getting into the heart of our deep dive.
Yeah.
If light was that slow, the world would become a surreal, almost psychedelic place. Like, imagine looking at a car driving towards you, and instead of seeing like its regular color, it appears bright blue.
Blue cars everywhere. Now that's an interesting traffic jam.
It's not magic, it's the Doppler effect on overdrive.
Yeah.
How a siren changes pitch as an ambulance approaches and moves away.
Right.
That's the Doppler effect with sound waves.
Yeah.
Well, with slower light speed, we'd see the same thing with light waves.
Oh, okay. So as the car approaches, the light waves get compressed, kind of
Right.
shifting the color towards the blue end of the spectrum.
Exactly.
As it drives away, the waves stretch out, making it look red.
Yeah, and it wouldn't just be cars.
Right.
Everything would be constantly changing color depending on its movement relative to you.
Uh-huh.
Imagine a basketball game where the ball shifts hues as it flies through the air.
Talk about a whole new level of difficulty for the players. And wouldn't things look warped, too?
Oh, yeah.
Like, wouldn't that length contraction thing Einstein talked about
Absolutely.
become super obvious?
You remember that train example we talked about?
Yeah.
If light was slow, even a car driving by would appear squished in the direction it's moving.
Right.
The faster it goes, the more distorted it looks.
That's wild. So everyday life would be like living in a constantly shifting, morphing, color-changing world.
Yeah.
I guess we'd have to completely rethink our understanding of what's normal
Right.
when it comes to how we see things.
And that's just the visual aspect. Think about communication.
Uh-huh.
Everything from phone calls to the internet relies on information traveling at the speed of light.
Oh, right. So if light was crawling along, wouldn't there be like a massive delay in everything?
Imagine trying to have a conversation with someone,
Right?
but there's a noticeable lag between what you say and when they hear it.
Oh, wow.
Or sending a text message and waiting hours for a reply.
Yeah, I think I'd stick to writing letters.
Uh-huh.
At least there's something charming about the anticipation, right?
Maybe. But seriously, it would completely change the pace of life.
Right.
Video calls would be impossible. Online gaming would be a joke.
Yeah.
It's hard to even imagine how our tech-driven world would function.
It's amazing how much we take for granted.
Right.
Like the simple act of flipping a light switch and having the room instantly illuminate.
Yeah, we have to develop a whole new level of patience, that's for sure. But speaking of slowing down light,
Yeah?
You know, it's not just a thought experiment anymore, right? Scientists have actually managed to do it.
Wait, really? They've slowed down light in a lab. Tell me more.
They've used these things called Bose-Einstein condensates,
Okay.
which are like supercooled clouds of atoms that behave in really strange ways.
Wow.
Imagine light particles getting stuck in a thick syrup. That's kind of what happens in these condensates.
So it's not some theoretical sci-fi concept.
Right.
It's actually happening. That's incredible. Does this mean we could eventually control light speed?
Hmm.
Like turn it up or down like a dimmer switch?
It's still early days,
Right.
but the possibilities are truly mind-boggling. But let's go back to our thought experiment for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about everyday life.
Right.
But what about the bigger picture?
Yeah.
How would a slower speed of light affect the universe itself?
Okay, now we're talking cosmic scale. I'm ready.
Well, for starters, the universe would appear much smaller than it actually is.
Okay.
Remember that redshift we talked about earlier, how light from distant galaxies gets stretched out as it travels towards us?
Yeah. And the more stretched out it is, the redder it looks, right?
Exactly. Well, with a slower speed of light, that redshift would be even more pronounced.
Okay.
It would be like looking at the universe through a giant magnifying glass that shrinks everything down.
So galaxies that are actually billions of light years away would appear much closer.
In a way, yes.
Wow.
And it would also make it much harder to study the early universe.
Right.
Since the light from those ancient events would take even longer to reach us,
Yeah.
it would be incredibly faint and redshifted.
So a slower speed of light wouldn't just change how we see things.
Right.
It would actually limit our understanding of the universe's history.
Right. It would be like trying to piece together a puzzle with only half the pieces. But here's something even more profound. If the speed of light were slower, it would fundamentally alter the nature of reality itself.
Okay, now we're getting into some seriously deep territory.
Think about it.
Okay?
The speed of light isn't just some random number.
Right.
It's woven into the very fabric of the laws of physics.
Yeah.
Change that speed and you change those laws.
So what, like gravity would be different? Or the way atoms behave?
It could affect everything.
Wow.
For example, the speed of light is directly related to the strength of electromagnetic forces,
Right.
which hold atoms and molecules together.
Uh-huh.
If light was slower, those forces would be weaker.
So atoms could potentially become unstable, like matter itself could start to fall apart.
It's a theoretical possibility.
Wow.
And then there's the whole question of how a slower speed of light would impact the formation of stars and galaxies.
Right.
It's mind-boggling to even contemplate all the ripple effects.
It really makes you appreciate how finely tuned our universe is and how crucial the speed of light is to everything we know and are. But you know what? We've been talking about slowing down light, but what about the opposite? What if we cranked it up, made it even faster?
That's a fascinating question, and to be honest, it's one that physicists are still grappling with.
Right.
There's a lot we don't know about the nature of light and the limits of its speed.
Okay, before we go down that rabbit hole, I think we need to come back to our original thought experiment.
Okay.
We've talked about a lot of crazy stuff, but you mentioned something earlier that really stuck with me.
Yeah?
How a slower speed of light could change our very perception of reality.
Ah, yes. I remember those time dilation and length contraction effects we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, if light was slow enough, we'd experience those effects in our everyday lives.
So, like, instead of just seeing a car look squished, we'd actually feel the distortion of space and time ourselves.
Exactly. Imagine walking down the street and feeling like you're moving through molasses.
Wow.
Or reaching out to touch something and it takes what feels like an eternity for your hand to make contact.
Yeah.
It would be incredibly disorienting.
I'm starting to get a headache just thinking about it.
But it gets even weirder.
What?
Remember how a slower speed of light would create delays in communication?
Yeah, those super slow text messages.
Well, that same delay would apply to the signals traveling within our own brains.
Wait, are you saying our brains would literally slow down?
In a sense, yes.
Wow.
Our thoughts, our reflexes, even our perception of time itself,
Right.
everything would be sluggish and delayed.
Wow.
It would be like living in a perpetual slow motion world.
Whoa, I never thought of it that way. Like our entire consciousness would be running on dial-up.
It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what would happen to our sense of self, our identity,
Right.
if our very thoughts and perceptions were slowed down to a crawl?
I think my brain is officially overloaded.
Huh.
We've gone from blue cars to warped perceptions, a shrinking universe, and now slow down consciousness. This is definitely one of our deepest dives yet. Yeah, it really is incredible to think that something as seemingly simple as the speed of light could have such profound implications for, well, everything, from the way we see the world to the very nature of reality itself.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
It really highlights how much we take for granted about the universe and our place in it.
Yeah.
And it all started with that simple question.
Yeah.
What if the speed of light was really slow?
And we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. We talked about how Colors would shift, object would appear warped,
Right?
communication would be incredibly delayed.
Yeah.
We even explored the possibility of atoms falling apart
Right?
and the universe appearing much smaller than it actually is. But for me, the most mind-blowing fact is that scientists have actually managed to slow down light in a lab.
It's truly a testament to human ingenuity and our drive to understand the universe around us.
Yeah.
And who knows what other incredible breakthroughs await us
Right.
as we continue to push the boundaries of scientific exploration.
I have to admit, though, all this talk about slow down consciousness has me feeling a bit, well, slow. It's like my brain is stuck in that thick syrup we were talking about earlier.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's helpful to slow down,
Right.
to really contemplate the incredible complexity and wonder of the universe.
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life and forget to look up at the stars and ponder the big questions.
Exactly, and that's what I love about these deep dives. They
Yeah.
remind us that there's so much more to discover, so many mysteries yet to be unraveled.
So as we wrap up this exploration of a world where light takes its sweet time,
Right.
what's the one takeaway you hope our listeners will hold on to?
I think it's the realization that even something as fundamental as the speed of light,
Yeah.
something we often take for granted,
Right.
plays a crucial role in shaping our reality.
Right.
It affects not just what we see, but how we think, how we experience the world, and even who we are.
That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that even the smallest things can have a ripple effect throughout the universe.
And it reminds us that there's still so much we don't know, so much left to explore.
Right.
Who knows what other incredible secrets the universe holds, just waiting for us to uncover them.
Well, I think we've given our listeners plenty to ponder today. Maybe next time we'll tackle the opposite question. What if the speed of light was infinitely fast?
Haha, now that would be a truly wild ride.
Until then, keep those minds curious and those imaginations firing. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.